Good afternoon. This is the regularly scheduled meeting for Public Works Committee. This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A. I am joined in chambers by Councilman Herndon, Councilman Bratcher, Councilman Benson. We have online, we have Councilman Piangentini and Mike Pinnick. We have excused absence for Vice Chair Parrish Wright. As far as the order of the agenda today, we're going to go exactly backwards. And we'll start with item number 3, R-050-25, a resolution authorizing the Office of Jefferson County Attorney to bring a condemnation action against certain owners of certain property, parcel number 4 in Jefferson County in connection with the Aiken Road and Arnold Palmer Boulevard roundabout project. Chair recognizes Councilman Piangentini. Oh, need a motion. Motion. We have a motion and a second. Chair recognizes Councilman Piangentini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate everybody's time today. So as by way of background, this condemnation action is related to the intersection of Aiken Road and Arnold Palmer in my district. This is an intersection that we've been working on for quite some time. By we, I mean the administration via Public Works and myself have been working to upgrade to deal with the significant increase of traffic on Aiken Road, particularly coming east to west, due to thousands of new units, residential units that are either built or being built over the next several years. And in looking at all of the ideas on the best way to improve this intersection, which crosses Aiken Road, has the majority of the traffic, but Arnold Palmer crosses it, the best option was to create a traffic circle, which has been, which was presented to the community, has been widely accepted and is the best option to improve that intersection. We have roughly 3/4 of the funding already set aside, and Public Works has been going through the land acquisition process very diligently over the past year plus, almost 2 years now to get us to where we are today. Unfortunately, we have one property owner that the issue, to be clear, is not that they are rejecting our offers. The issue is a complete lack of ongoing communication. And that is not by the lack of hard work by the Public Works team. They've reached out to my office. We tried to get a hold of the homeowner. We reached out to the HOA. They tried to get a hold of the homeowner. We were in touch a little bit, and then we were, again, met with sort of radio silence on the issue. So unfortunately, we have no choice but to move forward with this condemnation action, which, to be quite clear for everybody, does mean that this landowner will still be properly compensated. It just sets forward the motion that the Jefferson County Attorney's Office can force the negotiation, discussion, and ultimately court order to move forward with the legal compensation for their land. To be clear, we're talking about less than 1/10 of an acre of land. That is the issue here. So we're not talking about a big chunk of land. And most of that land is really for right-of-way, not necessarily being condemned for the roadway. You have in the reference documentation, you have the maps that demonstrate that, but most of it will not be taken up by the road, but is rather needed just related to construction right-of-way and the general right-of-way needed when a road is changed. So again, I want to compliment, and Mike is here from the Public Works team if he would like to speak a little bit about this, or anybody else if you have questions, but I can assure you that Mike and his team, the Public Works team, my office, the HOA, everybody has tried to move this forward, and this is just a matter of a lack of communication, and a reasonable amount of time at this point, over a year, has gone by without being able to move forward. And I believe we're at the point where this next step is justified. So I'd appreciate everybody's support so we can move this public project forward.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't know if Executive Director Kern or Director Pinnock would like to speak next. I don't know who.
I'm just here for questions. Mike
Okay.
Pinnock has joined us if there are any technical questions about the process as well.
Okay. Mr. Pinnock, I saw you raising your hand.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying I was here in case you,
Oh.
I apologize for not being able to be in person today. I had to take a training seminar online. But everything the councilman said was correct. As you all know, I hate to do a condemnation action. It just really, if the guy would just talk to us and I've even gotten the county attorney's office to try to reach out to the property owner. And same thing, he called one time and then he just went dark on us. So I don't know, it's just one of those things where I think he just is not interested in talking with us.
All right. Do you have any questions or discussion? I'll note that we've been joined by Councilwoman Chapel and Councilwoman Purvis in chambers. No further discussion? This be a voice vote or a roll call? All right, this calls for a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. That'll go to the consent calendar. The next item of business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next item of business is R-24-25, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept $10,716 from the Louisville Medical and Education District for the LUMED Underpass Lighting Project to be administered by the Department of Public Works and Assets. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Have properly formed motion and second. Executive Director Kern, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, just some quick background. We have been working with...
I'm sorry, could you identify
Oh,
yourself for the
sorry.
record, please?
Jennifer Commissar Kern, Executive Director, Louisville Metro Public Works. We have been working with different organizations throughout downtown that abut or are near or have pedestrians that are utilizing walkways that are underneath Interstate 65. As many of you know, a lot of that lighting has gone out, is broken, has suffered theft, other reasons it no longer works. We have been moving towards cost share, so this is part of that. Our electrical maintenance team is providing work to get those lights back up and running, but this funding is to help support on the materials for that rehabilitation to get the lights back on there.
Have any questions or discussion? Voice vote. This motion calls for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries, and we'll go to consent. The third and final item we have on the agenda is ID 25-0090, Council-Directed Traffic Calming Program. What? Did you say something to me? Oh, okay. Chair recognizes Executive Director Kern.
Hi. So good afternoon. A quick introduction on this project. So as some of you know, we do have some new council people here, but in the fiscal year 25 budget, there was funding allocated for a council-directed traffic calming program. So that's what today's briefing is going to be on. I have staff here today, and really this, I think, is kind of an ideal exercise to exhibit really what a Department of Transportation can do. I know that a lot of the projects aren't as visible from the outside, but we are joined today, Mike King from Advanced Planning, who will be moving over to Department of Transportation. Also, some of his planners are embedded in this team, and the exercises that this team has gone through to get solutions to problems that need a little bit more focus than just a phone call and a fix, but something that needs input from the planning team, input about the paving program, input from traffic engineering, and has really helped us to start setting some things in motion to get that organization online and understand what all is needed to move forward with more quick build type projects to help slow streets. And so with that, I will turn it over to Nate Kelch, our transportation supervisor.
Yeah, so my name is Nathan Kelch. I'm a transportation planner supervisor with Public Works. So just as a quick debrief, I'm going to give an overview of the program and where it sits now. So the need for it is we get a ton of different requests throughout the year from council to calm traffic. Historically, that's kind of been handled ad hoc and kind of piecemealed. So the goal is to add a little bit of structure to that through this process. So that's kind of the first bullet point. And then that table, basically, small projects are often handled through CIF funds. Large projects can have their own budget line item, whereas mid-sized projects often struggle to find a home as far as funding. So that's kind of the two main needs that we're trying to address with this program. So yeah, our goal is to fund medium-cost neighborhood traffic calming projects by identifying them through council and then evaluating and then providing designs and budgets for each one. And again, $500,000 was allocated in the fiscal year 25 budget to help solve this problem. So the first thing we did is that we got applications from each council member, or each council member had the opportunity to submit to areas of concern. Then we screened them to make sure that it fit into this program, and I'll get into that. But we've completed those two portions. And then we scored and ranked them based on some criteria that my colleague Jeremy Chesler will get into. And then we're almost done with design. We have three or four projects that aren't complete yet. But the goal would, and then we would send it to you all, who will say, okay, we have $500,000 and X number of projects. And then it would come back to us and we would implement the project. So this is probably the only super qualitative portion that had a large impact, so I thought it was important to talk through this a little bit before moving forward. On the left, you'll see a list of some very concrete quantitative things that say, okay, these, the area of concern that the council member identified doesn't fit in with this program because it's going to be on the paving schedule soon and we can fix the problem then, or there's basically no cars on that road and it won't be a big enough problem. And then on the right, you have a table that gets into some kind of soft qualitative things that we had to judge the areas of concern by, which was tough because at this point, all we had was.
Can I ask, would you like for questions to be asked as you go or wait to the end?
I think I'd appreciate till the end, if that's okay with you
Fair
all.
enough.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we did it. And I thought it was important because this is kind of qualitative and soft, and we just had to use our engineering and best judgment to determine if it fit within the program. So kind of where we're at is we have completed 31 shovel-ready projects and budgets. The total of those 31 projects is $2.1 million. And again, we have budgeted $500,000. So that's going to be a task for council to help prioritize. We will, in this presentation, discuss some options and some things to consider. But again, so we have $500,000 budgeted and $2.1 million in projects completed or designed and budgeted. So just as a general overview, we have 46 total submitted. And if you're keeping track, we could have had a total of 52. So we'll get into that later. But 31 shovel-ready completed. and that cost estimate is $2.1 million. 11 projects did not pass screening, and then 4 passed screening but are not complete. And that is just because they had varied levels of complexity, and just time-wise, we struggled to get all of them done. So we have 4 left that could affect how you guys would like to proceed. And if you see your district on here, know that it doesn't mean that we don't think your district's important or anything like that. It just means that they were complicated. Now I'm going to pass it to Jeremy Chesler, who's going to run through how we scored all the project areas.
Jeremy Chesler, Transportation Planner 2 with Public Works. So I'm going to focus on the scoring and ranking of these projects. So the scoring criteria is broken down into 4 main categories. So safety, things like crash history, speed data, traffic, so motor vehicle volume, and that sort of change depending on whether it's the classification of roadway. Then also multimodal, so looking at the presence of other forms of transportation, transit, bike, pedestrians, and then some community measures. So community facilities, so we looked at a half-mile buffer, schools, parks, libraries, things like that. And then also the Complete Streets Coalition score. So that's where the board is made up of 15 members of the public. So there is some public input sort of built into this scoring. And then those scores were out of 165 maximum points. So some sort of a breakdown of the high score versus the low score. So high score here, we have West Market Street in District 5 between 39th and 41st. So, there is a significant history of crashes in that area, and it's on the high injury network. So it scored high for those measures, as well as a high traffic volume. And then you could kind of see in here, this is right by the Academy at Shawnee, as well as some other land uses that generate people. So, there's going to be a higher impact where there's more people for implementing this. So that received 124 points total. And then, a low scoring location. So this is Long Run Park Road in District 19, right on the border with Shelby County. So here, there's not really a significant history of crashes, lower traffic volumes in general. So, it didn't receive any points for those metrics. It is, of course, within a park. So, it did get it did score some points for that. But as you could see around there, there's not really any significant people generators surrounding it. So, the score kind of reflects that, and it received that 24-point total score. Then this slide just shows the map, sort of the distribution of the submitted locations or the scored locations. So, it is spread out throughout the county based on the locations that we received. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague.
Hey y'all, I'm Lou Lepping. I'm a Transportation Planner 2 with Public Works. I'm just going to walk you through some of the problems and solutions for the projects that our team recommends pursuing. Oops, excuse me. So first, I just want to start by showing you this map. We just saw the map that Jeremy presented of all of the project locations. This map represents our recommended site locations. You can see a lot went into this, as Jeremy mentioned, including community input, traffic data, and geographic distribution was really important to us in this. These are the sites that the planning team, everyone that has spoken, recommends pursuing of all the sites that were submitted. So let's just dive right in, and we'll start with West Market Street. There's a lot going on here at on this corridor. As Jeremy mentioned, there's a high variability of uses here. It's on the high injury network, so we know that speeds are very high. There's a lot of pedestrians, cyclists, and motorist traffic, and also there's some confusing signaling because we have traffic signals stacked on top of each other. We have maybe some confusing intersections for motorists and pedestrians both to navigate. So what we're recommending here is improved pedestrian connections, first of all. That looks like improving or adding legal crossings here for school children and neighborhood traffic, general foot traffic, and also at this section. Paired with that is rapid flashing beacons so that pedestrians can communicate more effectively with motorists to let them know that they intend to cross. We also are proposing new curb extensions and striped parking in an effort to slow motorist traffic down as they approach this intersection and along this corridor. And then generally, we just aim to communicate more effectively via the rapid flashing beacons and the pedestrian signage here. So the hope is that this creates a safer corridor, not only for motorists, but also for pedestrians crossing here. Next is Barrett and Ellison. I'm sure many of you know that this is a hotly contested intersection, and if any of you have driven it, you know that it can be kind of a confusing intersection for anyone approaching it from any direction, motorists, cyclists, pedestrians. There's a high variability of user, as I just mentioned. There are poor sight lines from pretty much every angle because of the topography here. And that makes it unpredictable for pedestrians to anticipate the movement of cars. On top of that, we have some connectivity issues because here, this wide sidewalk is actually a multi-use path for both pedestrians and cyclists, and there is new bike infrastructure on Ellison Avenue. So our hope here is that we can connect the bike infrastructure to the multi-use path. The improvements that we're proposing here are those improved bike ped connections with legal crossings for pedestrians and cyclists here. The cyclist crossing is in green. And mostly we aim to slow motorists on their approach to this intersection by installing concrete medians that sort of ask people to approach more thoughtfully as they come up over this hill. And then the new crossings would be paired with rapid flashing beacons so that pedestrians and cyclists can communicate more effectively with motorists. On the border of District 15 and 21, we have South 5th Street. South 5th Street ends up getting used a lot like, or it looks a lot like Central Avenue in a lot of ways based on its average daily traffic and also the speed. Sort of has medium average daily traffic paired with high speed, or paired with a wide street, which equals high speeds. And so we also have a high variability of users here. Pedestrians and cyclists both use this because of its proximity to Churchill Downs, also proximity to Southern Parkway, so it's getting used as a cut-through to Southern Parkway, and there is a school nearby. So in recognition of all those things, we are recommending to improve pedestrian infrastructure. You can see here sort of improved crossings at certain locations. And then also the installation of concrete bump outs, which will slow motorists by creating certain pinch points along the corridor, improve sight lines at intersections, and create a less desirable cut through over to Southern Parkway by slowing folks down. At the intersection of Dorsey Lane, we have high speeds and low visibility, which creates a really uncertain turning movement for folks entering and exiting this neighborhood. Work has been done in the past there by installing thermoplastic rumble strips to indicate to motorists that they should slow down as they approach this intersection. So we're just proposing some simple measures to reinstall the existing thermoplastic rumble strips and also to install new thermoplastic rumble strips to just sort of reinforce that caution there. And, oh, no, sorry, not lastly. Bass Road connects River Road to Hayes Kennedy Park. And so there are high speeds on this road because the street width doesn't lend itself well to the ADT, and so we get high speeds when we compare, add those things. We're proposing 10 new speed humps between River Road and Hayes Kennedy Park just to slow the traffic to and from the park. I'm sorry, I want to mention too that those were requested by neighbors and also indicated in the James Taylor Jacob neighborhood plan. And then lastly, we have Mitchell Hill Road, which has high speeds and leads to and from Jefferson Memorial Park or Jefferson Memorial Forest. Because of the high speeds and the confusing road curvature, it leads to some unexpected interactions between motorists, as you can see in this image submitted by Councilman Syme. It leads to some really unsafe road departures and collisions. So we are recommending that we add thermoplastic rumble strips to indicate that to motorists that they should slow down around these curves. And then also the installation of a new legal crossing at Jefferson Memorial Forest Visitor Center. And I'm going to pass it over to Nathan Stone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nathan Stone. I'm a project manager with Public Works. And the first thing I wanted to cover before I get into the budgetary and financial piece of this is really that we're doing a balancing act on any project that we decide to undertake or consider undertaking. And really there's kind of two big things that we're balancing. So on the left-hand side, you can see the triangle there of maintenance cost of a project, as well as design, so design best practice, and then the price. So all three of those things have to be balanced to come up with an efficient design. And then on the right-hand side, the other triangle, the other thought process we go through is where are we placing those projects in geography? So where are they located within the city and distributing those impacts throughout the city. The other thing we think about with that is impact. So we want to have as large as we can of an impact on all user types, all transportation modes possible, and where the most quantity of people and users are feeling this change and actually having an improvement in their transportation conditions. And of course, that's always balanced also with price. So these are kind of balancing acts that we constantly have to do as a department when we think about what we're designing and proposing. You already have heard this from my colleague Nate, but again, council allocated $500,000 budgeted for this particular program. Around $2 million is the cost of all of the submissions so far that we've designed and estimated, which means we're around 28% funded. So if you chose to do any additional allocations or pursue other funding types, that's purely at the discretion of council, but this is kind of where we stand today. And so we have a lot of shovel-ready work ready to go for when that becomes available. And one more piece of context I like to provide as well is this idea of an upfront cost and a long-term cost. These things are often in opposite directions. You'll see on the left that there is what we call post and paint. That's literally putting paint on the surface of the road and putting in delineators or some type of vertical element. These things, are pretty cost efficient, right? They're really cheap to install. And they get us quickly implementing projects, which is a huge win. And then on the far right-hand side, you can see concrete, a median. Those things are a lot more expensive to install, so the upfront cost is very high. And in the middle, we have asphalt. In this case, it's speed humps, and that's kind of like a medium cost. So upfront, you might pay a lot for that concrete work, but in the reverse, the long-term maintenance cost is going to be quite low because that facility is hardened, what we call hardened, and it's very impervious, I guess, right? So it lasts a long time. So you're not having to replace it every 6 months to a year. You're replacing it every 30 years, for instance. Versus post and paint, the paint chips off the ground. The delineators can be knocked over, unfortunately, and so if you're going out there replacing that a ton, you're going to eat into a bigger long-term cost. So these move in opposite directions. We just like to keep that in mind. The thing that I'll say about this is that this means that we don't always propose the cheapest solution for an implementation for a project. And that's because we're always thinking about long-term maintenance as well. So there's a trade-off that's happening here. So in all the project work we're defining, it's not always the case we're doing the cheapest solution. We're doing the thing that is most efficient long-term, that we think will be stand the test of time and actually work the best. So in thinking about ways that we could help council make a decision, because obviously the need is several times greater than the funding available, these are 3 recommendations that we aspired to give you. The first is option A, which is our recommendation, striving to hit somewhere between 3 to 5 projects and staying under that $500,000 value. The second option is option B, and these are the top scoring projects. So if you remember, my colleague Jeremy talked about the criteria matrix and ranking these projects based on standards and quantitative measures. We could just go straight down the list until we hit 500,000 and be done. Hopefully 3 to 5 projects. And then, again, if additional funds were pursued, you could do the whole portfolio of projects, and again, that's around $2.1 million. Here's the list. You've already seen the designs. Lou was presenting those just before me. And you can see that in column A, you're going to see the recommendation that we've made. And in the parentheses, you'll see the score. That's the criteria score. So the very top ranking project is West Market Street. The first one we presented has 124 points. And then you'll see as you go down the list, some of the scores start going down, but they're all relatively high. So these are all very high impact projects from a quantitative standpoint. But the thing to understand about our recommendation is that we have looked at long-standing requests from the community, which are not necessarily factored into the scoring matrix, and also our general knowledge of geographic spread. So we're trying to spread that those dollars as far and as wide as possible to come up with something that, as you saw on the map, those 6 projects were kind of scattered throughout the county. You can implement those throughout. They're not all focused in the Urban Services District or all in the East End or all in the West. They're spread throughout. And then the top scoring option, which is the center column, that's B, that's just starting at the top of the ranking and just moving down until you hit your 500,000. That's what that would look like. And it only accomplishes 4 projects. They're all very high impact, but some of them are fairly costly, so you're not getting as much done as our recommendation. And then again, C is self-explanatory. That's the entire portfolio. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Nate.
So this is our first year doing something like this, and everyone on, all the people behind you worked exceptionally hard. Also, traffic engineering really worked exceptionally hard, and we had a lot of lessons learned kind of internally about project delivery and project ideation and all that stuff. But as it pertains to this particular program, I had a couple of notes that if implemented again, we would maybe think through a little bit better. So not all council members submitted projects. We presented to both caucuses, legislative assistants, and then the Public Works Committee, sent out email blasts. But I think just thinking through generally how we should communicate more meaningfully with council to let them know this opportunity exists, would be something to think through again and how we can improve. Both Nathan and Lou mentioned that Barrett and Ellison did not score the highest, but our kind of qualitative knowledge about that project and how we've been getting complaints about it for decades now, before my time at Metro. You know, how to take those qualitative measures and get them into the scoring to make it more accurate, I think would be useful. We could also set aside some funds for engineering services. Some of the more complex projects that you see in the packet are a heavy burden on our engineers who are already swamped. So I think that setting aside funds from the beginning and setting up a contract to review those plans would probably be a good way to look at things. And then lastly, several council members, when we told them about this program, said, okay, well, what should I submit? And probably having some ideas already generated for them that they could then take and decide whether they want to submit or not would be a useful exercise as well. So those are kind of preliminarily ways we want to improve and do better and solve this persistent issue that we've seen from council. And now I'm opening the floor to questions.
All right, thank you. I'm going to start with just a fundamental issue I have with not just this, but the way that projects are chosen in general, and that is the small cost projects having to be paid for out of council CIF. Public Works is given a budget to maintain the roads. I just have a fundamental issue with council members having to use CIF to pay for small projects. But that was,
Well, I'm sorry not to speak over you, but I think that there are, as this exercise shows us, a lot of problems. A lot of times people call us and they say they're speeding on a street. The solutions aren't really straightforward, and I think that sometimes a speed hump isn't the correct solution, which is really the only thing that we have a clear path forward for. And sometimes it's something where it could take our planning team, engineering team, traffic engineering, potentially outside consulting to help us get to an actual solution that will really solve the problem. So I think that I completely understand, yes, we are responsible for the roads and for maintenance, but there is a lot that goes into coming up with creative solutions to slow traffic down. A lot of times it's not just as straightforward as, say, adding a speed hump sometimes doesn't work.
don't disagree with that at all. My rub is it shouldn't come out of CIF to pay for it. But that's probably just a rant more than a question. If you could go back, can you go back some slides to the map that had all the red worms on it, that one? Those are, if I understand it correctly, those are all of the projects that were submitted to be graded. The second slide, the slide right behind this one there, is the ones that your group suggests going forward with. Do I understand that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you go to your rubric, which is I think that right there, my opinion of this is that rubric is a little biased because there are some council districts that are never going to get projects to pass because they're handicapped from the way that the rubric grades them. Just because you can't change the geography of where that district is. And if churches and schools are more geographically spread out, like in some districts, than they are more concentrated in other districts, then the ones where they're spread out are automatically handicapped by this this rubric. So I guess my question is for you to maybe go back and look at the way you're grading the projects.
Yeah,
I'm
and
looking for an answer here, because
Yeah, I
that
think
is a,
that's really good feedback, and that's what we would like to hear. This is I think we did a great first run of this, but there are certainly opportunities to do better.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll open up the floor to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I wanted to talk about the recommendations at 41st and Market Street in District 5. I would agree that a crosswalk is needed directly in front of Shawnee High School. I have people complaining all the time that there needs to be a crosswalk as well as a flashing sign for pedestrians walking across the street with signage on there. There are two things that I'm not sure of. And one is the concrete curb extensions. I really don't see the benefit of those. Everyone, not everyone, but no one has ever called or talked to me in favor of those in my district. The people that have talked to me about them, they just do not like them. And I don't understand why they're there. If anything, they limit parking space. That's money you can use somewhere else, if you want my opinion. You don't have to put those anywhere else in District 5 because no one likes them, and including me. And you're talking about removing a street light, a stoplight. You're talking about removing the one at 41st and Market,
was that?
the stoplight you're talking about removing?
Yeah, so the hope would be that we convert it to a stop condition, so just a stop sign instead of a traffic signal. And that would, we're doing that in Old Louisville with great success, in other places. That the idea being is that when people see a green light, they speed up and it causes issues. So by removing the traffic signal and adding a stop sign, I will say that it's noted that traffic engineering is evaluating it. So we haven't, but it's just something we pointed out.
I would reconsider that one because of the amount of traffic in that area. I would definitely reconsider that one.
Yeah.
But also, Jennifer and Nicole, we've talked, are really the area that we need to pay attention to is one of the deadliest areas lately in District 5, and that's 33rd and Northwestern Parkway. I'm surprised I didn't see that up here. I'm calling for a public meeting because we've had too many accidents there and some fatalities, and it's right by the elementary school. And so I would love to see you come up with a calming plan. I know you all have some suggestions already, and I'd like to talk about those publicly with the constituents in that area, but I would have thought that would have gotten the study first instead of this one. But again, if you would reconsider removing that stoplight and also reconsider not putting those curve-out things on there. I just do not see the benefit in them. It's just my opinion. I think it's a waste of money.
And we are, so the subject of what we're here today are only the items that were submitted. And we do have some sketches for 33rd Street, and we are trying to get, right now, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet is working on a Northwest Louisville plan. Part of Northwestern Parkway is owned by the state, part is owned by us, and that's something where I'd like to talk to them, and I've already talked to Nate about options for what we own, and starting to get buy-in from the state as well.
Yeah, and the principal of Portland Elementary, she's waiting for us to tell us when we're looking to meet, if you can include those guys as well. And I know I mentioned to you 30th and Market has become really dangerous since the sports complex is there. And then we have the 24th in Portland and the 29th and Bank Street. Those intersections are really dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Bratcher.
Really like the proactiveness of it. This is the first year this has happened?
Yes, sir, yeah. Yeah, first year we're trying it out.
Will you consider it a success so far?
I think so. I think that internally, figuring out how to implement these things as a team was a really, really good experience. I think we learned a lot internally by trying to, because we usually don't do this many projects internally. So it was invaluable, honestly.
Who
And-
designated the $500,000? Was it council?
Yeah.
Council come up with this idea?
So
Just curious, that's all.
I think it may have been Nicole, or Deputy Mayor George, who kind of said, this is a persistent problem, like, what are our options? And then I think it was a team effort to come up with this
Thank you.
solution. Yeah.
And I will just add, the meetings that I attended where the spirit of moving to a Department of Transportation, having all of these minds and levels of expertise in the same room together, talking about things is really magical. And figuring out, as to your point, Councilman Hudson, we're already working on the roads, we're already tasked with that. Are there things that we want to adopt that we're learning about that just become okay, or the standard things that we want to implement as we're going through doing repaving, doing restriping? Are there things that we could just start doing in the course of our normal programming? And those, I think, are also some of the lessons that are coming out of this.
Thank you. Councilwoman Chapel.
Thank you all. Thanks for your hard work on this project. I know my office is very excited about it, as well as this presentation today. And I also like that you included the lessons learned, because like you said, this is a pilot project. So one of my questions was about a list, and then I decided to look into the attachments. And there is a list, a pretty thorough list of all of the projects. And like you said, the goal is to have these shelf ready. And so at any time, a council member or someone from DOT can go and pull one of these off the shelf and get it done, because we already know what needs to happen. My first question, though, as we're looking through it, and you had early in your presentation outlined that there's kind of 3 buckets where it's like, suggested to pay out of CIF, those middle of the road kind of projects, and then budgetary items. I think that there is some dispute on those definitions, but when I'm looking through the projects on this list, there's one in District 15 that is the South Fifth Street project, and that I think is $215,000. But the one that's on Mitchell Hill Road is $16,000. A person like myself would argue that, and not to be dismissive of your first question, Chair, but one could argue that a council person could just pay for that out of their CIF. Those are there's a big difference in those numbers. And so how does that factor into these projects?
So the next step, and that's something that I wanted to talk about before we move on, is ultimately it's the council-directed traffic calming. So it's intended to be voted on, ranked, scored. And again, this is our first time doing this, so we welcome feedback, how to do it differently. If that is not something that you all determine is the priority or the way to go, then that's the decision. It's not going to hurt our feelings. So ultimately, that will be the next step, is finalizing the projects that are outstanding, getting final scoring, and then moving forward, we have to figure out a way to get those in front of you all and get those ranked and how to advise moving forward. So that will be the next step in the program.
All right, well, that was actually my next question, was next steps. And so I was curious on how council approves this, because you had outlined there's implementation options A, B, and C. There's already $500,000 that council has allotted to this. I don't have my budget books in front of me right now. Is it another $500,000 that's being allotted to this same program in this fiscal year budget?
No,
That's
at
proposed, or
this
is there
time,
any-
it's not proposed in the budget. And some of the outcome we kind of alluded to is having those shovel-ready projects. So when we know that we have an area that we get complaints all the time, what are you going to do about it? We have a shovel-ready solution that you can put a price tag on, figure out how to fund it, whether it is, a collaboration with maybe other agencies, like if it impacts a park, or other stakeholders or other funding sources, or on locations that maybe border or cross two separate council districts, maybe partnering. But the idea is that it's something you have that's a tangible solution in a direction to move. So whether it ultimately gets funded here, you have a solution. If we were to do this again next year and it wasn't funded this year, you can submit for the same location. Or, to Councilwoman Purvis's point, maybe at the beginning of the program, you had priorities. Priorities have evolved, and maybe you want to submit something different next year.
Sure, that kind of takes off the idea that it's shovel ready or shelf ready. I think shelf ready is a little bit better or comfortable for me because, if we were to fund, first off, let me point out that there's 26 of us, and dare I say that we're all strongly opinionated, and we're all going to be fighting for our districts. And so to put 5 council people that gets projects and then the other 21 don't get anything, I'm not looking forward to convincing my colleagues to support those projects, no matter what a scoring rubric says. I just want to make that clear. But in a funding ask, I'm just curious if there was a recommendation that came from the DOT for another $500,000, or is there a recommendation that $1,670,000 is put into this project, so all of these shelf-ready projects get implemented? But I also want to mention that there should be a caveat to that, right? If we were to put the full ask of $2.3 million, these projects, what's the realistically, are they going to get done, and on what timeline and by who?
So I will say that we recently, because these are all in the job order contract, I think it would be a combination. One of the things that Metro recently entered into is a job order contract. So it allows us the ability to do things like a quick build type project, which all of these would be considered quick build. Some of them that include traffic signals or flashing beacons, that work would have to be done in-house by groups like our electrical maintenance. There are potentially overlaps that we could cover within the course of our own work that we're doing for things like striping. So there are several different ways, and that is, again, something that we will have to get sorted out.
And so, sorry, last
But-
question is,
One more?
yeah.
Quick.
Well, yeah, the only thing I was
Okay.
going to say is you said the next step is to finalize those, I think, other 4 projects and get those into the scoring rubric. Since we're entering into budget season and we're going to approve that in the next, month and a half, will we have that information in front of us to make educated decisions?
So the $500,000 that exists is in fiscal year '25, so it wouldn't be, but yes, I think, what is the timeline?
Yeah, we'll have those complete in the next couple weeks. I can hear, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quick. I think those concrete things that they put out in the centers, they had one at Tucker Station and Taylorsville Road. And no telling how many accidents it caused when it was icy and stuff and people couldn't really see them and it bounced all over. They finally came along and jackhammered them out of there and just put some lines, and it was a lot better. Did you all have on your all's list Marydale calming strips or something?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's 5 on Marydale now. It's going into Ventnor Park. I don't know how many you're going to put there. To me, unless I don't know, did somebody complain about that? I mean, it wasn't from our office.
So if we covered it, then it was, unless there was an error on our side, it was because someone from the council office submitted it.
Well, you all need to drive that before you think about putting some more there. I mean, like I say, there's 5, and I drive it every now and then, and it's definitely, you're not gonna speed. I mean, you almost have to go 20 miles an hour just to get them over so you don't get bounced. I mean, they're pretty good bumps. So I think y'all need, maybe if you would, look at them. Thank you.
And I think that's a good point. I mean, these, the goal here would be that we would gladly take council feedback and change these plans and adjust the budget accordingly. Yeah.
I have a final question for you. How do you reconcile projects for state roads? For example, the flashing beacons, I asked for one, and it was on a state road, and the state just said, doesn't warrant it, and there was no recourse. So if that's your solution, but it's a state road, how do you implement your solution?
So within this program, it would not get to through the initial screening. We're not doing state roads because we'd have to do an encroachment permit and coordinate with them, and there could be disagreements, and that would take a long time to Councilwoman Chapel's kind of implementation concerns. But like generally, I think that, I think coordinating with KYTC better would,
Okay,
I think there's going to be disagreements. Yeah.
all right. No other questions and no other business before the committee. We, without objection, stand adjourned. Thank you for your presentation.